All right, time for another video. This one's a little different. Rather than explaining a sign or how, explaining to the guys in the back shop how to build the sign, which is why I started this during COVID, because I wasn't around to explain it in person. It's kind of become handy for passing along information. And since my macros are now being used at work by other people, I had a request of like, hey, now that you make videos, can you make a quick one to explain some of these macros? I think I'd like to use more of the macros if I can. I have no idea how they work. And I kind of laugh at that because even me, sometimes I'm like, man, I forgot how this works. Just a little history, designing and building these macros was kind of on the fly, born out of necessity. I'm not, first and foremost, I make signs. I'm not a computer engineer. I'm not a software developer. I just play one on TV. So I appreciate user design and user experience, the UX and the UD, but I did not go to General Assembly to learn these things. But I do know they're lacking. So I know the difference, and I do know, I wish there was time to make these better. But these macros have developed over time, very similar to, in my mind, I always like the picture of Wallace and Gromit, where Gromit is furiously laying track down while the train is in motion. And it's kind of the same thing. I'm first and foremost building signs, and it's like, well, I'm tired of making this same rectangle over and over, or I'm tired of doing this over and over. So there's got to be a way. And so that's when I figured out how to do code. And from there, once I got good at it, I would get frustrated at doing something over, and I would just stop what I'm doing, write code real quick, and then move on. That being said, the way, the haphazard way I kind of came up with all these apps or macros is, for those that don't know or whatever, it's just varying degrees. It's all computer science. You write code, but it just depends on, how involved your computer program code is. So some people call them scripts. Corel even changed it to the word scripts. It used to say macros right here in the Docker, right? But now it's scripts because they added Mac. So if you use Mac, they'll let you use JavaScript. Since I'm in Windows, I use the Visual Basic, which is, Microsoft's code. So whether it's an app or a macro or a script or a program or code, I kind of interchange those words. So if I say app one time and I say macro and I say program and code the other, it's all the same. It's macros. So let's say we do install pattern here. If this was going to be a pattern, I'd push a button and it turns this into install pattern. I go push a button like that. Boom. It says I need to install pattern. A little bit of fun there. So let's just take this. You can see where it's still live text, for people who know this in Corel. So early on, I kind of, in the code, working backwards, I'm kind of like, down in the basement, digging through the boxes of code, without really, seeing how everything works, going, oh, this is cool. Oh, it'll do this. Oh, wow. It'll do that. So in the code, working with what's called strings. So this is a string in computer science, without getting too much into it. A string is a bunch of text put together. So right now, Corel is graphically showing this. But this is actually a string that, let's say, JavaScript or Python or Visual Basics. Visual Basic is what these guys use. This would be translated to literally PLEASE. It would be a string. In Corel, in the code, which is pretty basic, it could tell you, I could write script pretty easy that says, tell me how many letter D's are in this. And it could tell me. It'll return 3. And then I can use that number to do things or whatever. I could also ask it, what positions are the D's in? I mean, I would have to write the code to cycle through and get them, but it would say, and I believe the position starts at 0. So P is in 0 position. But anyway, it would tell me, D is in 3, D is in 4, and D is in whatever. And and I'm like, that's pretty powerful. Like, I mean, it's basic for computers, but I mean, I'm learning. I'm like, well, to be able to apply that to what I'm doing here. So then I was like, well, if it can recognize a 5 or if it can recognize a 2, can it pull that out? Or, if I just type a 5, which I have my stencil machine here, so I don't actually have to type. But if I want to just put a 5 on screen, or if I want to just put a 9 on screen, then as long as it's still live text, then the computer, Corel, will know as it sees this as a string, but Corel can recognize it as a 9, an actual number. And so as long as basically 0 through 9 are numeric, and as long as it is a number, then in code, you can take a string and convert it to an actual number in code. So again, on this screen, this is just a graphic that Corel's doing magic to make a 9 and a 5. But I can take these and transfer them over into Visual Basic computer look code language, and I can start adding and subtracting numbers on screen. And then basically what it's doing is it'll scoop numbers and then take those numbers, add them together in code, turn them back to strings, turn them back to letters basically, and then send it back to Corel, and Corel will put it on the screen. And that changed everything. So building on that, as they say, necessity is the mother of invention, blah, blah, blah. So I started to, create as I went. I'm like, ooh, I can do this. Like, so one of the early ones was being able to, on the screen itself, I'm able to put the measurement of something by pushing a button. So I grabbed, let's say I kind of laid this out. Let's say these are reverse channel letters, right? We've got some 25-inch channel letters, but I want to see how tall this is, the X and the Y. So I can just push a button and it'll go ahead and put the inches vertically on the screen for me. And also if I want to know the X, I can go like that. So these early macros, because I pass this information on to, not only do I work with it here, but I oftentimes do this in order to pass information on to the next, to fabrication, stuff like that. So I want this on the screen. That being said, I'm a stickler for trying to stay in Corel. I don't like to type. It's not that I don't like to. It's like not that I'm not good at it, but I don't like taking my hand off the mouse because I like to stay in the moment. I like to stay, it's a momentum kind of thing. Once I'm working, I like to just go as fast as I possibly can. So that's why I'm going to go over that one of these days as well. But I use a Razor Tartarus, which does all my shortcuts for, so I don't have to do Control G, Control U. I don't have to do Shift, Control, page down for sending stuff to the bottom of the page. All I got to do is, single tap, and this thing will just handle it. So having to take these numbers, like Sizey here, and taking that number and then stopping and adding it with a calculator was just very disruptive. Like, like, ugh, and then I got to stop. And, I know that sounds crazy, but you add up seconds and then it equals minutes, and then you add up minutes and it equals hours and all that. So who knows over a year how much time you waste or whatever. So it's all about efficiency, et cetera, et cetera. So I had this one here that would put stuff on size. The big one was curves machine. So once you convert something to curves, Corel, whether you do it, programmatically. So if you go under the hood, you go down I kind of liken it to going into the basement below Corel, and in all these pipes and fittings, you can access things that you can't do here. Up here, there really isn't anything that lets you do these things. But if you learn to code, Corel has all kinds of powerful things for you to do. So, so anyway, so like if I want to know the square feet, the area of this, then all I got to do is hit this button and it will tell me that is in square feet, 1.25 square feet right here. So I can say, hey, I'm going to use that much material there. And I can do this with the L. And again, I'm putting it on screen with numbers here. And so what I want to do is if I just go like this and hit it, it'll give me all of that. Great. But now I got to stop what I'm doing and I got to get my TI-89 graphing calculator out because I'm a nerd and I got to add all this together. Another powerful one, like I say, these would be, let's say these are channel letters. So working with channel letters all the time, essentially my macros are to build monument signs, build signs, cabinets, things like that quickly, to burn through regular channels and reverse channel letters. So let's say that these are, reverse channel or irregular. So I know there's computer programs out there, but using a basic formula of, 5 divided by the circumference of the letter, the actual perimeter, Corel will tell you that. So again, using my curves machine, without having to put it on screen. But if I take this curve length in inches, it's this 25-inch letter here is 87.8 inches around, right? So taking that, got pretty good at being able to guesstimate how many LEDs this will take, how many feet. So this right here just puts this on screen just like that, boom. So 5.4 feet as a single run to go here, 5.17 will take care of that, that right there. So again, here I am though, I have a whole list of numbers that I have to add together. So I turn into an accountant all of a sudden. So, we have our LED feet, again, the curves machine here, if I want to know the area. So there we got the area there. So all these numbers add up. And then the other one was figuring out reverse channel letters, how much material you need for the guys in the back to easily say, hey, these are how many strips we need. So let's say these are 25-inch reverse channel letters, and we're going to go ahead and wrap these with a return of 2 inches deep. So we have a 48-inch stomp shear in the back. And so how many strips would we need if it's 4 inches deep? And, how much to wrap this? So since Corel will read the perimeter, I went ahead and wrote a program that divides, that's this guy here. It goes ahead and takes the reverse channel letter length, divides it into 48-inch strips, and it will tell me right here. I can change the font right there. So it'll tell me how many strips it'll take at 48 inches to go around this. And it rounds up. So this might be 2 point something, but it doesn't do you any good to know 2.3 strips. Just tell me 3. So it programmatically goes and rounds up all the numbers. And so again, here I am. I need to add this all together. So all of this need to add things caused me to then write another macro. All right, so let's get after it. Show you how it works. You're like, finally, let's see how this thing works. So grab your go time, hit the M, pop open your Mathinator there, just like that. So that's what we got. So now, in order to deal with all these numbers, you've got multiplication, division, you got percent, your minus, and your plus. And then because you can either work with, like with this here, I don't want any decimal points. But here I want it up to 5. And for my feet, I had to set it for just 2 because I didn't need that. Corel goes all the way up to 12 decimal points with accuracy. So anytime you're doing something with like angles or anything like that. So in the code, you actually have to trim the way you want it. So I have here, you can set it for 0 decimal places. You can set it for 5, or you can customize it depending on how many decimal places you want. So like here, we're just going to add these up. If I hit 0 and I hit plus, then it's going to add it up to 31. But if I hit here and I hit 5, it's going to add the zeros on the end. It's going to give me 5 zeros. And then, of course, if I do that, it'll give me 13 zeros. So just depending on what you're doing, I generally, as a rule of thumb, go with 5 decimals of accuracy when I'm dealing with just whatever I do in Corel. Because, that way you can do 0, 3, 1, 2, 5. You can do, all that stuff without having to round up. Once you get into rounding up and rounding down to decimals and you're trying to make things fit, you can be very sad very quickly. So anyway, so that's all you got to do. So if you want to add these up, you can choose decimal place and then hit plus. And it's always going to put the sum in the center of the screen. So if you move over here, so let's say you take these guys and you come over here and you hit plus, it's going to put it in the center of the screen. So you can kind of aim for that. If you're going to take these and add these, you can kind of come over here and then it'll give you that addition. So you can see here where all of these have 5 decimal, but because I have 0 selected, it rounded up to 22. So I'll click that to 5 because I'm working with 5 decimals. And I'll add that. So there's our total for these numbers. And let's see the LED feet there. I'm going to go ahead and just leave it at 5. But if I wanted to, I would just go to this custom here, type in 2, and that'll keep it to 2. Just like that. Now, with plus, it does all of these numbers. With the other ones here, though, because you get sticky whether or not your orders of operations, like minus, if you're going to take 2 numbers or 3 numbers or 5 numbers, which one is minus the other one? It can, you get different results. So for the multiplication, the division, the percentage, and the minus, it's just 2 at a time. So if we set this to 0, 3 minus 3 gives you 0. Math checks out. What it'll do is it takes the biggest number and minuses it, so that way it's not a negative number. Because usually I'm not trying to find a negative number. So again, just to not get any kind of issues going, I went ahead and had it in my program. When you select 2 numbers, it will automatically take the biggest number and subtract, or take the littlest number, subtract it from the biggest number. So that way you don't get into trouble. But yeah, if you want to take like these 2 here, you select them, minus, there's 2. Oh, well, I got a round. There you go. 2. So that's that's what's left from these 2, et cetera, et cetera. So you got that. Same thing with multiplication. That doesn't really matter, but it's only 2 at a time. So these 2 multiplied together get you that. Those 2 multiplied together get you that. So same thing there. That should be 9. Yep. There you go. So that's the minus. And then the division is the same way. Let's see. I think the division, I have it where it automatically takes the biggest one. Let me double check here. Let's see. If we take the smallest one first, you get 1194. You take the biggest one first, you still get the same. Right. So I have it the same as the minus. So that way we don't get into percentages. That's what the percentage is for. So if you take this number and do percentage, you'll get this one here and this one here. There you go. See, so it's going to automatically take the littlest number first and then divide the biggest number and divide it into the littlest number so you can get a percentage. So if you take 3 and 4 and hit percent, of course, that's 75%. So, but if you take 3 and 4 and you multiply it, then it's 12. And if you take 3 and 4 and you divide it, it's 1333333. So again, this is really good for me because of what stuff I do and, trying to add all this stuff up for fabrication and stuff. But what about for, other average people that are, not doing this stuff? Another use case that I would use it for, that might come in handy for the average Joe that's not making, purely just fabrication, is to estimate using the curves machine. As I showed you before, this will do the square feet and everything. So if you want to lay this out for what I call ghetto nesting, if you use your routing software and stuff, that'll automatically nest things for you. But if you want to just get a quick idea, then using Mathinator helps you because you can do a lot of on-screen graphically laying stuff out without having to do math. So it makes it easy. So let's say we want to route these. So again, these are reverse channel letters. Let's do 090 faces. So we have a sheet of 10 foot by 5 foot aluminum. Okay. So, and I'm going to go ahead and just make that gray. I use 10% to represent my aluminum there. So here we go. So we're going to take these guys here and we're going to just do we're not going to do the full nesting and, all that stuff. But this is basically for me, just a quick ghetto way of doing it. So to figure out the square feet of this, I just go ahead and hit this button, but I'm going to hit on screen and there's 50. So that's 50 square feet. And I'm going to go ahead and make that, let's make that 8 there. Okay. So that's there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to quickly figure out. Now, if I take this and I figure out the square feet, and then I take the square feet of all of these separately like I did before, that's not going to quite work because that's actually just exactly this. But in order to sort of, so you're going to get a false number. So again, you're going to take this and you're going to add it together, and that's going to give you 21, right? But that's actually all of these together. So now if I were to take these and sort of nest them as close as possible, and destroying the kerning here, but this is just for estimation purposes. And I'm kind of guesstimating that that's like the route path. Again, en route and stuff would nest these much better. But if you just want a quick, then you want to get right up in there. Again, I'm using my Tartarus there for my nudges. Nice and easy. And then I'm just going to go ahead and do a, let's see. We're going to snuggle these up right there. Boop. There you go. And then I'm just going to take this right in there like that. All right. So, of course, we've destroyed the kerning. But now what we do is I take this and I hit this thing down here called BAM. And that just automatically gives me a rectangle around the border. So then what I do is let's just make this purple for fun, or a lavender color. And we'll make this like a light blue. Okay. So now if I take this and I do the square feet, there's 14. And then here's my square feet, and that's 13. And then I can go, of course, add those together. And so now I get a much, slightly different total square feet there. So now I can go ahead and take these two as sort of stand-ins. And I can go ahead and do a square foot on that so I can keep track of which one's which. And I'll go ahead and just do a group. And there you go. So then what you can do is take this guy up here, get rid of him. And then we can just go ahead and nest these on top of each other. And then that gives you, oops, there you go, like that. So that's where you can kind of see, and again, en route might put them over here. En route might be more of just taking a sheet this way, But now you can do the math. So if you take your 27 and you take your 50 and you do like this and you hit a percent, then you're looking at 55%, which is math kind of checks out. 25 and 50 is half, so 0.5. So it's just a little bit over, 55%. And so that works out. And so what you can do for fun is take this, we all have different interpretations of fun. So if you take this and group it, and then you take that and you trim it, and then you take the square feet of that, then that's how much square feet you have left. And again, you can take that and do your percentage, and there's your 44. And if you take those two and add them together, you're back to 1% a whole. So math checks out. So that's like I said, that's kind of ghetto nesting. But again, Mathinator makes that possible, but it's because I built all these other ones and I started to do all this on-screen work. But you can see how handy this is, because then what I would do is I would just freeze frame this like Jay Giles, and I would just send this as a PDF to the back shop or whatever, and they could quickly get an idea that, oh, that's awesome, So again, and you can come up with different ways of using this. It's not just this, but like I said, I got my different ones here. I'm going to go ahead and talk about these, but you can see I have on screen. So if I need to know the distances between things, it'll put it on screen. And then sometimes I'll have a bunch of that. And so of course, Mathinator really helps out. But not having to stop and add all these together and do all that math separately and then come in, and then what do you do when you have to type a number? You have to do your artistic tool, and then you have to type. And that's a pain in the butt as well. Like, who wants to type? Just for animals. I'm a gentleman. So anyway, that's it. I'm going to keep going on this, and I'm going to, they won't be so long-winded. This was like intro 101. So from now on, I'm just going to make a little series. I'm just going to explain all the little macros that are necessary that I think other people might use. It's geared towards mostly the people at the shop there. But anyway, maybe it'll help you kind of see the power of Corel and, work something out. So anyway, hit me up if you have any questions.